Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. Part number, where are we at? 54 on the build tutorial. And what we're going to be working on this time is we're going to do a little bit of sanding with the 3000 grit sanding sponges. And I got a couple dust nibs I need to knock out. We're going to get that ready to go. And then we'll be moving over to the spray booth in the next video, and we'll be spraying down some Tester's one coat lacquer on the body. So what we've already done so far is one thing I didn't mention in the last couple of videos is I decided to go with purple on the firewall. And like I said, this firewall has to be installed to these side pieces on the interior. It doesn't actually go inside the body like most of them do. So we went ahead and painted that with the Tamaya lavender. And then I just, actually, this was sprayed straight out of a can, no clear coat or anything over top of it. And once that dried, we went ahead and glued it into place. So that's ready to go. And then I went back in and taped off the interior, as you can see right here. So now we're just going to take the 3000 grit sanding sponge, and there's a couple little specks of dirt, and it's not going to show up on camera what I'm actually doing, but I'm going to go in and just very lightly knock down just a couple of those areas that I don't, that I see could be a problem and show up in the clear. For the most part, it looks pretty good. But like I say, on all my builds, I always end up with a little bit of a dust spot. That's just a given in here in my conditions. And I tend to go in and do a little bit of wet sanding and buffing, and it takes care of it. So we're just dry sanding with the 3000 grit, just enough to take out the little dust nibs that we have in the finish. And like I say, it's not a whole lot. It's just a couple of them here and there. And we'll just run this 3000 over. As you run it over the surface, it'll knock down anything that sticks up just a little bit. You don't want to go too much because there's no clear on this. You're sanding directly on the paint. So if you have to sand anything, substantial, you may have to repaint it because you'll cut through. But this is just real light. 3000 doesn't cut a whole lot. As you notice, I'm doing it dry. I don't wet sand on stuff like this. Some people have asked me why, and one of the reasons I don't do it on this is, as you can see, I got the interior taped off, but I also use a lot of acrylics. And acrylics and water, slopped around on the finish don't really cut it. You can run into some issues there. So most of this kind of stuff, I just go in and this little cleanup stuff, and I'll do this with a piece of 3000 grit, just dry. And then we're going to be moving on. That looks like about all the little spots I needed to take care of. Yep, that actually looks pretty decent. So next, we're going to take our wide brush that we've used in the past, and we're just going to go around in all the little cracks and crevices and stuff like that and see if we can get everything out of the finish and get it ready for clear. Now, one thing I need to mention in this, if you're just starting out, or even the seasoned guys, if you're using a light color like this, and you happen to get a piece of dirt in it, like on the first coat, and then you keep spraying over top of it, what may happen is if you go back in and sand this, you may sand down through, as you're sanding a high spot off, you may end up going back down to almost a primer on that dust nib. So be prepared for that. Sometimes when you cut a dust nib out, you don't have you don't have a lot of coats of paint on here, you may have to go back and spray another coat of paint. So we've got that all cleaned up. That's looking good. We're ready to go into the one coat lacquer clear on this part. So we're going to set that over here to the side. And the next thing we're going to do a little bit of work on, I've looked at the sides and everything of the body. We're good there. Off camera, I was talking on the last video, I was talking about I had a little bit of overspray right here at the cowl where I did the wood graining. And what I did was take just a little bit of the rubbing alcohol, the 91%, and put on the Q-tip and just rolled it across the towel like that. just to get the excess off. And I came in and just very lightly wiped this area right here and this area right here and got rid of the acrylic overspray that got right there. It actually finished the V off, but I didn't want the V going onto the cow. So we took care of that. We didn't have to sand anything there. That was good. And I've got just a couple little spots that I want to take care of. One of them's right here on this door. It's got a little dust nib in it. So again, we're just going to come in dry with the 3000 grit, and we're going to very lightly knock down and blend in this section right here underneath of the wood graining. And you don't want to go across your wood graining because all that is acrylic up there right now. And if you hit it with this piece of sandpaper, it'll probably be gone. You'll be back down to the purple that was underneath of it. And the other thing also is, if you want, people wonder why I don't wet sand with this acrylic finish on here without that being sealed with a coat of clear. Now, we sealed the purple with a coat of clear, but we did not seal this wood grain yet. If you were doing this wet sanding it, you take a chance on lifting that acrylic over there on the wood grain. So you can go in with this 3000 grit, and I mean, if it's very fine stuff like it is in here, you could actually get by with the 5000 grit. I also have that. Let's see, what do we got over on this side? There's a little bit right up here next to the wood grain. Just another little dust nib. And like I say, I mean, you're going to have dust. There's a lot of guys out there that are striving to not have anything in their paint. And when they're all said and done, they still end up going back and wet sanding and basically buffing out their finish. So, instead of stressing over a little bit of dust or whatever, knowing that you're going to wet sand and buff anyway, it's not that big a deal. But, it's the individual's, taste on what they want to do. Personally, I don't worry about a couple dust nibs because I'm knocking them out right now with this step right here. And then on top, we don't have much. I'm just going to lightly sand the top of the entire roof. If I can hold on to the sandpaper here, we're going to sand the entire top of the roof, because on a model that you're going to put on the show table or anything like that, the roof is going to be one of the most important areas to get right. Now, don't take that as just get the roof right and not the rest of the model. But the roof is one of the things that will stick up, and it will get not only the public's attention from a distance, but it will also get a judge's attention. So if you can make sure that when you're done, that roof looks especially good, that's going to help you if you go into competition. But then again, once you get them over there from a good looking roof, you got to make sure that the rest of the model keeps their interest and looks just as good. So, but what I'm basically trying to say is the roof is a very important part of the model, and the viewing angle also, because when you've got this sitting on the show table, you're looking down onto that roof until you bend over and start looking at the sides and things like that. When you walk up to the table to see this model, you're basically going to be looking at the top of it. So make sure you get that right. So that's basically all we got to do. Like I say, just a couple little dust nibs here and there, no big deal. We took care of them. We're going in now with the brush and just wiping everything down. Of course, we have the decals in here. They all laid down real nice. Looks good. Happy with that. And, check everything over at this point in time. Make sure you're content with everything and it all looks good, because this is the time to fix it. And yeah, we look good. I'm happy with that. And another little thing that I'd like to mention is this is acrylic that we used on the wood grain. It is a Tamiya acrylic, but if you were going to spray this with the TS13, you have to be very careful on how wet your coats are, because what will happen is the TS13 is a little bit more aggressive than the Tester's One Coat Clear, and it will get down if you spray it too heavy, and it will start lifting, and it doesn't actually lift it, it just kind of displaces. It melts the acrylic underneath of it, and it will kind of blur your graining and stuff like that. So, be very careful on that. Make sure you get a couple good dry coats down first, just to seal that wood grain down if you're going to use the TS13 out of a can. If you're doing it with an airbrush, normally you don't have that problem. I've run into that when, I'm spraying straight out of the can. So no little tip there. So that's what we have for that part. Now we're going to bring the lower body back over. As you can see, we already have it taped. And when we do our clear process, I didn't want to slide the body all the way down into position and then clear it, because clear sometimes can become just like an adhesive. And with the way this body fits nice and tight down against the fenders, it would most likely stick. And then trying to get it to pull back up to pull the masking and everything off the interior would be bad. So what I did is just tape that off, run the tape down the sides of the body and across the back there. And we just slide the body down, and where it's not touching the fenders, where it's going to be in its final position. Don't slide it down that far. We got a little bit of gap there at the cowl, and we're ready to go over to the booth and get the tester's one coat clear on this. Now, as far as the hood, I don't have any dust nibs or anything in it. We're going to take that over there also. Once I get one coat down on this, when I do the second coat, I'll also do a second coat across the hood. So that's coming up. Stay tuned for that one. If you have any questions or concerns, leave me a comment on the video. We'll be more glad to answer them for you, or comment on your concerns. So as always, this is Hunter from Showtime Studios, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.